Welcome to this week's episode of Beyond Sports. I'm your host, Fan, and joining me is my co-host, Bob Taylor.
Hey.
Well, we have a great episode lined up for you guys today. First, we're going to be starting off with our segment of Nuggets Now, where we'll be covering what's been going on with this Nuggets team this past week. Moving on from that into our Nuggets Knowledge segment. This is my personal favorite, where we try and guess a Nuggets player throughout their entire history based on some of their stats. And then lastly, we'll be rounding it out with some of the Nuggets' biggest threats as it currently stands. So who is a threat to the Nuggets championship? Well, we'll find out there at that third segment. But first, we're going to be starting off with our this week's edition of Nuggets Now. So, I mean, what a phenomenal week, Nuggets fans. I think this has probably been the best couple of weeks of basketball the Nuggets have played all season. I can't remember a single stretch of time where I felt the same way as I do right now about this team.
Yeah.
They look like they've kind of, okay, this is where we're going to give the bench from a minutes perspective. Justin Holiday played really well.
Very well against the Lakers.
Yeah, very well against the Lakers. So just some really positive things to talk about here. But, you know, Bob's going to kind of get us started here. So what do you got, Bob? What are some of the biggest takeaways from this past week?
So they extend their winning record 42-19 or 42-19 on the year. They're third in the West, half a game behind the OKC at number 1. So they're tied with second with the Timberwolves, who currently have the tiebreaker over us. But they're on a 6-game win streak since the All-Star break. They haven't lost since the All-Star break. And frankly, they look like a completely different team since the All-Star break because they're just stepping on the gas and not letting up.
Yeah, and we're seeing the starting rotation kind of shift more into that playoff mode mindset.
Absolutely.
They look all completely dialed in, which I love to see. It's what we've needed to see, frankly, all year. But what we're starting to see even more is they're starting to get the little taste of that playoff minutes. So the bench, that last, 3, 4, 5 guys coming off the bench is now shortened to 2 to 3 guys. In that game versus the Lakers, I want to say we only had 2 to 3 rotational players off the bench. And that's kind of where we're going to be at come playoff time, is that 8-man rotation versus the 10 to 12 that we would typically run on your normal regular season night. So they've been playing with this playoff rotation over these last 6 games, and it's clearly working. MPJ has been torching it.
MPJ looks great.
Going into that Lakers game, averaging almost 22 a game, dropping 25 on 10 for 10 shooting.
Yeah, this week he's been averaging, I think, 25, 22 around there. 2 30-point games in this week. Or I'm sorry, 1 30-point game, 1 25-point game where he was perfect and shot 10 for 10. My bad.
Right.
So wasn't as good as I was acting. Just kidding. That was one of the best games I've ever seen from him, especially as a shooter. I mean, he only took 5 3-point shots, and I know we've said this before, but we've wanted him to kind of not dial it back on his shots, just kind of figure out a better shot selection and not just rip everything that he gets. Mm-hmm. And I've also said this before, he needs that kind of confidence. He should rip whatever he gets just because he needs it to be the level of player that he is. However, he's kind of figuring out, I don't need to take the 3 every single time. I can take a pump fake and then take 2 dribbles in, get to the free throw, and put up an easy pull-up.
Yeah.
And he's doing that at a high consistency lately. And, I mean, let's look at what he did this week. He didn't have the best game against the Kings. He had 14, 5, and 1. He was 5 for 11. He had 30, 11, and 3 against the Heat the very next game. And he was 4 of 10 from 3, 12 of 23 overall. Biggest thing, he had 2 steals and 2 blocks while he was having one of his huge nights, which I think is like the biggest aspect of how much he's improved.
Absolutely. And like you had mentioned, his shot selection and just his overall cadence of offense looks totally different. And I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing is kind of the visual output of what you're describing is he looks comfortable. Like last night, all 10 of those shots were pretty good shots. Like he took the extra dribble to avoid the contested shot more often than not. And then occasionally he would pass out of a potential jump shot of his, and like you mentioned, drive to the basket as well. And I just like that he's trying to add a little bit more levels to his game, because if MPJ can keep up even remotely this level of consistency, like the Nuggets are going to be extremely difficult to beat.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, he does have back-to-back games with 3 or more assists. So watch out. I mean, he's no longer Michael Never Swing the Rock Porter Jr. He's heard you out there. He's starting to get his passing down a little bit, and I like to see that. I mean, 3 assists, 4 assists, it doesn't sound like a lot, but considering his play style, that kind of is a big jump.
Yeah, and that's really all we need from him with how the Nuggets are set up. Occasionally maybe a little bit more would be helpful, but overall, like with Murray and Jokic on that court, that's a lot of facilitating from those two. They don't really need MPJ to pass the ball all that much. I think 3 to 4 is perfectly appropriate because those are probably 3 to 4 shots he shouldn't have taken that he passed and got an assist with. And I think that is like the prime level of MPJ.
Well, and something I noticed in the Lakers game was in the non-Jokic minutes when Murray and MPJ were on the floor, they were doing a little two-man game of their own with a little pick and roll, pick and pop action with MPJ, and it was working great. And that's something we haven't really seen all season when Jokic is on the bench, is a consistent scoring option, and that action, I mean, looked very well. I think they scored on it 3 times last night. So they're figuring stuff out, especially Malone with rotations, like you were saying earlier, and who to kind of keep on, who to let rest, when to do it, and which guys work best with each other. But I definitely think he's kind of figuring it out, especially on the defensive side. CB, Peyton Watson. I mean, Watson had 3 blocks last night.
He looked great.
He looked really good.
And those guys are just really big spark plugs for us. And I think that Peyton Watson especially, and the person that we know CB can be, and he's been kind of a roller coaster all season with his output. But I really do think once it really gets down to playoff time, we're going to see a CB that we saw last year. Because we really didn't see much of that CB till like the very end of the year last year, it felt like.
Yeah, he did kind of have a quiet regular season, and then in the playoffs kind of came in and it was like, who's that guy getting 6 to 10 points per game when they need it? Like it wasn't a ton of points. He's not getting 16 to 18 points per game, but 6 to 10 loud points, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and he was kind of all over the place, it felt like, during the playoffs last year, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he was great on defense, great on offense last postseason. But I'm really interested in the fact that Malone's getting Justin Holiday more minutes, because he looked very good against the Lakers. And I mean, I know that's one game, small sample size. He had a game he got in against the Heat, didn't do that well, but he also looked okay. I mean, I think he had 6 points. He had 13 against the Lakers, including like a good last couple minute bucket, like fit right in the clutch situation, which I like seeing. And I know it was just because KCP was hurt, but I'm interested to see if Malone goes back to that more going forward.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would hope for the same thing. I think most of the time, at least with the games I've watched, when Justin Holiday plays and he gets a little bit of time on the court, he usually is relatively impactful from what I've seen. Like, yeah, he's had the occasional off game, but definitely someone we can expect 10 points per game from if he's getting a nice bench rotational minutes. So hopefully we can continue to work that out of Justin Holiday. I mean, the bench is still in need of somebody who can fit into that rotation well. Peyton Watson obviously has done it, but I just feel like the offensive side has struggled. And then Justin Holiday obviously brings more of a defensive presence than, say, a Reggie Jackson, who we'd probably be the second person we would ask to score around 10 points per game.
Yeah.
So if we can have a non-negative on the court that can get us some points, I'm all for that, and that's all we need. Because then we're working with somebody like, okay, let's say Justin Holiday can output like that. Now we had him, CB, Peyton Watson, and then, maybe some randoms like a Strother or even a Reggie Jackson kind of coming alive during the playoffs like he did in the Clippers. It's all possible. So the Nuggets, the way they're looking right now, I mean, I'm not saying I was ever skeptical about a back-to-back, but I definitely thought there was some work that needed to be done, but they are looking like a complete team at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they look like one of the most lethal teams in the NBA right now. I mean, since coming back from the All-Star break, they have one of the best defenses and one of the best offenses in the league. They shut down Miami and Golden State under 100 points. That's crazy. Can't believe they held Golden State under 100 points. However, it's really interesting to see AG's play since the All-Star break, because he's been a lot more consistent. Like, before the All-Star break, he was getting a lot of games where it'd be like 6 points one game, then 18 the next, then 12, then like 20 or something like that. But now, I mean, this week alone, 17 points, 16 points, 18 points. Every game he's a part of the offense and closing out games like he did last night. I mean, I love that the pick and roll with Murray, where Murray gives it to Jokic at the top of the key, not top of the key, but around free throw line.
Right.
Immediate Jokic turnaround, oop to
fake shot, alley-oop.
Yeah, little fake shot into
Best
the
play
hoop.
in basketball right there.
They close it out with the Warriors that way. They close it out with the Lakers that way. And it's just two-man games used together.
Bit of a triangle offense going on, honestly. A little taste of that.
Yeah, three sides, I guess, yeah. But yeah, just to see him kind of be integrated as much as he can into the offense is really good to see. And him doing it on a consistent nightly basis has been really good to see.
Yeah, and that output is more what we saw from him last year. Last year he averaged around 16 and a half points per game. And we really have been missing that this year. I mean, even though it's only 13 points per game, that's a big couple of points that we need out of him, specifically Aaron Gordon, because his baskets are so highly charged. Like, they really drive the offense. Like you said last night with the Lakers that we're dealing with, and Aaron Gordon getting those alley-oop plays from Jokic and just realistically anyone on that team.
It's demoralizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about that?
Yeah.
You can't because you use your big to guard Jokic. And then how are you going to contain AG, who's just so strong in the post and has been playing some of the most aggressive basketball I've seen him play.
Oh, yeah. He's barreling his way to
an
the
animal.
Yeah, he just barrels his way in and just dunks.
He's just like, I'm just way stronger than all of you now. Like,
I'm way bigger than everybody else.
It's great to see. And I think another person, it's realistically the whole starting lineup for me has just been so
They've
impressive.
looked great.
Jamal
KCP's
Murray's
looked
come
great.
out.
Murray's looked
proving
great.
he is and should have been an all-star this season. While I agree, not necessarily fully agree with the decision to leave him off. I understand why. It's a deep league, but he is proving exactly what level of player he is outside of this all-star break, and I love to see it.
And I don't think anybody really thinks he shouldn't be an all-star, but he doesn't have the regular season stats to back it up.
A little bit of semantics.
Honestly, that's fine, I guess, because they can keep underrating him if they want. It's just going to make his contract cheaper.
Yeah, very true, actually.
I mean, it'll help us not have to sign him to a supermax and just give him a max deal, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I believe that was
you deserve a supermax, Jamal, but from a team building standpoint, it'd be nice not to have to pay that. He did have a scary moment in the Heat game, went down in the first half, and that was pretty scary. I honestly didn't think he was going to play in the Laker game. I was surprised. I thought he was going to be sitting for a week or two because of how bad it looked. But came back and then immediately, what do you have? 24, 6, and 11.
Yeah. I mean, he bounced back right away. And I don't know how many of our listeners out there actually saw what happened on the court, but his ankle twisted pretty freaking hard.
Bad.
It looked like the ankle had damn near touched the ground. And for us overall, I mean, obviously as Nuggets fans and Jamal Murray fans, it's always terrifying to see something like that. So just happy to see him back on the court. I'm shocked to see him back so soon. I still can't believe I saw him on the court against the Lakers. But I think that just speaks to this isn't the same Murray that we've seen in the past, and he's putting in the work off the court to really make sure that he's there for us on the court, and it's been great to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been Nuggets Now with Beyond Sports. Follow us on social media at Beyond Sports 5280. Call into the show live at 720-446-8463. Again, that number is 720-446-8463. We've got a great segment of Nuggets knowledge coming for you after the break. Tune in shortly after this. Welcome back to Beyond Sports. Well, that was a great segment of Nuggets Now. Obviously, a very positive outlook for the team at the moment. But now we're going to be moving into my favorite segment of the week, and that is Nuggets Knowledge. Bob had it last time we did it, which has been, a little on and off for us, but looking forward to getting back to it. So this week, Bob, I've got somebody for you. They are somebody who went to University of North Carolina.
Okay.
Very prestigious school. I would say that this particular player also was not necessarily more well-known in college, but was a college phenom. Definitely involved in a pretty unique program with UNC. Won a college championship, an NCAA championship, and was an McDonald's All-American going into it. So very highly sought-after prospect pretty much all the way through. Eventually made it to the NBA after 3 years at UNC. Went the first round, 18th overall, to the Timberwolves.
Okay.
So
a little below a lottery pick.
yeah, but definitely still a high draft player. One of the things that was holding him back was ankle sprains. He was dealing with those for quite some time on and off throughout college. Played for the Nuggets, though, the longest, for 6 seasons, and pretty much right away played for the Nuggets. I'm not sure if a trade happened early on, but made his way to the Nuggets pretty quickly, and that's where he is the most well-known for, I would say, period, throughout the league. Played for 6 NBA teams total, and then one thing that he's well-known for in the game, especially in this era, he went 10 for 11 for 3 in a game, made 10 straight three-pointers.
Okay.
First player to ever do that, by the way.
Oh, 10 straight?
10 straight.
Shot, missed the first one, then didn't miss any, or
made all 10.
Made all 10, and then
missed
the
last one. He's like, oh, well, I don't have it anymore.
Okay.
He played his best
nuts.
season with the Nuggets and in his NBA career. Scored 17.6 points per game, 1.6 steals per game, 8.8 assists per game, 3.5 rebounds per game, and oddly enough, finished in 17th in MVP voting that season.
Okay. I didn't even know it went down to 17. But
yeah, they had
interesting.
They had it deep. It's just interesting to note that he was even considered for the award at that time. You know, just demonstrating his impact specifically for the Nuggets organization.
Do you know the year of that, or would that kind of give him away a little?
Yeah, I think we want to eliminate years from a lot of our things, as it can really narrow down the list of players.
Yeah.
So the last thing I'll give you is his overall Nuggets average, because again, I feel like outside of the Nuggets, not necessarily a majorly impactful player. He still played for quite a few teams, but pretty much one season per team after he left the Nuggets organization. So his Nuggets averages came out to be about 4.2 points per game, 6.6 assists per game, 2.9 rebounds per game. Now I'm going to pass it off to you. That is all the stats I have for you this week for this player. So who is your one and only guess?
Okay, so you said 3 years at UNC. Did you say if he won a NCAA championship?
NCAA champion.
Okay.
One time NCAA champion.
So I believe this is Ty Lawson.
That is correct. It is Ty Lawson. Great job.
Yeah.
I thought this would be a little tougher, but some of his records and accolades definitely stand out. You know, a more recent player, kind of peaking around that 2014 to 2011 season was really his, I would say, prime in the NBA.
Yeah.
Just coming right out of college. Back up to Chauncey Billups for a while until Carmelo and him got shipped out.
I feel like, especially with his averages, you said, 8.8 assists per game with his best season with the Nuggets. I think a lot of people thought he was kind of going to take the reins from Chauncey and be the next Chauncey. Because I remember playing with him on 2K and we didn't get a lot of Nuggets games back in the day other than what was available on TV. But from what I remember seeing was he seemed like he was going to be the next good point guard for the Nuggets.
Yeah, and I think he lived up to that hype a little bit. I would definitely say
degree,
Chauncey was better than him.
Yeah,
overall, of course, especially with the rest of his career. But Ty Lawson was somebody that people sought after, specifically, coming from Indianapolis. I remember a lot of people would pick the Nuggets specifically to play with Ty Lawson.
Yeah.
Because he was such a fun player and a really deadly three-point shooter, obviously, being able to go 10 straight. First player to do that kind of really right before Steph's time, realistically. So overall, just a fun player. So, as we always do, where would we try to place him in the Nuggets' overall history? This is a guy who I think, again, very recognizable. Is that because it's more recent? Was he ever truly a high-level player?
He was definitely a high-level player at some points. However, I don't even know if I'd have him in top 15, 20 I mean, where do you think you would put him at? Because I'm kind of struggling where I think I would put him because, I mean, does he really lead any like statistical categories in anything or?
No, nothing specifically for the Nuggets. I think he's up there for the 3-pointers, but overall not really notable in that particular area. So from my perspective, I can agree. However, I wouldn't even consider top 20. I would definitely say somewhere in the top 100 as somebody who made an impact for the Nuggets over their 47-year season, 47 season total in the NBA. I mean, you have to think about it that way. Like, at one point, he was the second best player on the team, or if not the best player on the team after the Melo Chauncey Billups trade. So for me, I feel like that gives him a seat at the table, at least in the top 100.
Yeah, where did we land on Fareed?
We put him at 47, I believe.
47, because I feel like I would probably have Ty Lawson around.
Somebody who played with Ty Lawson as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, that's true. Most of his assists probably went to Fareed.
I mean, they were all a part of that era, and it was a fun era to watch. You know, it definitely kind of in a transitional period to what we're at now, but
Yeah, they weren't
definitely
the best teams, but they were fun teams.
yeah, Ty Lawson was electric. Definitely someone who could knock down the 3-pointer. Overall, really loved to see that team and how Ty Lawson impacted it. So from a numbers perspective, I would definitely kind of put him around the Kenneth Faried. I mean, do we
Would you-
just put him at like 45 right near him?
Well, that's what I was about to say. Would you say he's better or worse than Kenneth Faried?
I think his peak was better, but Faried had more accolades for him, like, for instance, being part of Rising Stars and some of these other things that Ty Lawson wasn't necessarily a part of.
Ty Lawson was an NCAA champion, though.
He was an NCAA champion,
Not
so
necessarily a
I
Nuggets
would say
thing.
he's definitely a little bit above Faried from an overall impact standpoint. That's why I'd put him at a 45.
I would think so. I would agree with that. Yeah, I just think 45 is probably exactly where he should be.
Yeah, so I guess the bigger question then is he worth an NBA spot?
As in a top.
Just a number of
Any
any
number.
kind. I mean, I think that at some point, are we making 1,000+ list? I mean, what'd we say? There was 4,000 total NBA players ever.
Something like that, yeah. I know we ranked Fareed too high on that chart.
Initially, but
Initially.
that's all right.
That was-
We're
it
moving
was our
on
first
from that.
one. It was our
We're
first
moving
one.
on from that. That's okay.
Yeah.
And listeners, one thing I want to emphasize big time for everybody out there, anytime you don't agree with a rating that we have, we would love to hear about it.
Yeah, let us know.
Give us a call, 720-446-8463. Call in and give us your number and the reason why you would give that player that number. So it can be Nuggets all time, NBA all time. But we'd love to hear your opinion because we're going off of how we feel this player's impacted. But obviously the city of Denver is a community, and we love to hear everybody's opinion on this subject. So I think the biggest question, you know, we definitely, no question, have a place for him in Nuggets history. But NBA history is tough. I think it would be more of an argument if we had more of like a college consideration to that, but it's not necessarily something we've included for everybody.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think it's fair either because it is. Well, is it? You know what I mean? It's.
I mean,
kinda,
some players have had a really electric college career, but then it opens
Kemba
up a lot of
Walker.
things.
But-
Yeah.
Kemba also played phenomenal in the NBA for at least a couple seasons. I don't know. It's interesting to think about. He is an NCAA champion.
And
McDonald's
ACC,
All-American.
AAC Player of the Year, first
ACC.
team All ACC, both in 2009. ACC All Freshman Team in 2007. Number 5, honored by the North Carolina Tar Heels, so he's got his jersey retired essentially. And first team Parade All American in 2006, heading into college, and then obviously being an NCAA champion.
Yeah.
Consensus second team All American in 2009 as well.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely some awards, and then 2009 I think was kind of his peak of basketball as a whole because then he wins the Bob Cousy Award, gathering quite a few accolades, mostly from that peak college season. And any UNC fan out there knows Ty Lawson, loves Ty Lawson.
Oh, definitely.
Same with most Denver fans. But again, kind of going back to that same main subject, I feel like if there's 4,000 plus or 3,500 to 4,000 total NBA players in history, where is he in the above the 50% mark? So 2,000, is there 2,000 players better than he is?
17.6 points per game. I mean, that's nothing to snub your nose at, or snuff your nose at, whatever it's called. 8.8 assists per game. That's another good stat line. I don't know.
That's a peak season, though.
Yeah, it is a peak season.
And his overall averages are a
How
little
many
different.
years total did he play? Because that actually might change. So you said played for Nuggets for 6 seasons and then played for 6 total teams.
Yeah, so he played 8 total years. But the biggest thing is his overall averages. So career averages out of 551 games played, averaging 29.2 minutes, by the way. So pretty decent starter minutes. Yeah. 12.7 points per game, 2.7 rebounds per game, and 6 assists. I mean, that's pretty solid.
Those are pretty good numbers.
I would say that that's definitely above a 2,000. So then we move into is it better than 75% of all-time players? I would say no. So I think we're at that 1,000 to 2,000 range. So maybe somewhere in the 1,500 range, I think he's probably better than 60% of everyone. I mean, I think a career.
Maybe I think there's an argument to be made for that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a few numbers to be working with, though. Sorry, listeners. I know this is a broad topic if we're getting into these kind of numbers, but I think we have to be able to define almost any player we talk about, right? Especially when it comes to our Nuggets, because when it's all said and done, it'll be cool kind of to see where we think that they've landed in history as a whole from some of the people we're trying to highlight.
So, what'd you say, like 60th percentile? I think I can agree with that.
Yeah, so 60th percentile, I mean, easy math, we can call it, let's say, 1475, just so we don't repeat that number. Yeah. All right. So we're writing that down right now, 1475. Listeners, give us a call. Tell us what you think. We've got him at number 45 for the Denver Nuggets all time. That's Mr. Ty Lawson we're talking about. And NBA all time for Ty Lawson, we decided at 1475 as the NBA all time rank for Ty Lawson. If you agree or even disagree, give us a call at 720-446-8463. We got some exciting more Nuggets content for you after this break. We're going to be breaking down what are the biggest threats for the Nuggets right now. So stay tuned for more of that after this.
All right, welcome back to Beyond Sports. I'm your host, Bob Taylor. With me is the Fitted Nuggets fan.
What's up, Denver? Hello, Nuggets Nation.
So today we're going to be talking about the biggest contenders to the Nuggets. So their biggest, not rivals, but their biggest threats.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a few, I would say, specifically in the West. Everyone got a lot more talented around the Nuggets. And the Nuggets, while they're looking terrific right now, there's still some legitimate concerns that lie in the West at the moment.
Yeah.
I think right now, for me personally, I'd say the Timberwolves are one of the biggest threats at the moment. They have maintained a high-level position throughout the entirety of the season. They did recently fall to the Clippers in a hard-fought battle, kind of a mess-up in Anthony Edwards at the end there, kind of showing his age. But overall, the Timberwolves have fought super hard. They have some really great athletes that are in that organization right now. They have a deep team, and they look ready to win a championship.
They look good. I don't know if they look ready to win a championship personally. I actually left them off my list for they were like right in that upper echelon. I actually replaced them with the Thunder. I was gonna bring them up, but the more I think about it, I don't know if I can trust Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards at this moment for Anthony Edwards to be super clutch in a playoff situation consistently to where he could beat the Nuggets.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely saw some clutch level playing from specifically Anthony Edwards last season in the playoffs where he dropped, I believe it was 54 points against the Nuggets. Now, whether or not we can rely on the rest of the team to come to that same level, I think we saw some of that from Gobert and his Jazz days when they went to the playoffs, and we just didn't see that same level, specifically against the Nuggets, actually, in 2020 when they came back and beat the Jazz in that series.
Yeah. Well, and they don't look – they're very deep. So I think that could be something that the Nuggets struggle with, especially in the postseason, is they could go to 4 or 5 guys off their bench, whereas the Nuggets can only really go to 3, maybe 4. And their bench players are just better. I mean, Anderson, Naz Reid. Does Naz Reid start? I don't think so. But anyways, Anderson, Reid,
Jaden McDaniels.
They're deep and they're athletic. And I don't know
Conley.
if Mike Conley, huge Mike Conley fan. Nicest guy in the world, apparently. But yeah, they look good. I just don't know if their role players and the level of players that they currently have is enough to get past the Nuggets.
Yeah, I would agree too. And like you're talking about with the depth with the Timberwolves, it's that depth because they have 10 good players on the roster and they win games because they just straight up outlast other teams in the regular season who are rotating the same 10 players out. And now that we're heading towards the playoff time, a lot of these rosters are getting more to a 7 to 8 man rotation with playoff minutes and everything coming up. So are those core 7 to 8 players going to outlast and beat a core 7 to 8 Nuggets team? I agree with you. I don't think so.
I don't either.
But I think it could go 6 games and,
yeah, maybe
going into
even
the
7.
playoffs, thankfully I don't think we're going to have to see them right out of the gate.
No.
Which could be good or bad. One thing I see being scary is them getting a rhythm in the first round of the playoffs and having to see them in the second round, potentially the third round. Just having to play a well-rhythmed Timberwolves team, I think that is a threat. And Timberwolves are just somebody I don't want to see in the postseason this year, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between them and the other people on this list that I have is they don't really have – I understand Anthony Edwards is in some people's MVP conversation, but frankly, he shouldn't be. I mean, he's not a top 5, top 7 in MVP conversation, in my opinion, at the very least. But he's still a phenomenal player, but I think you need somebody in that MVP conversation to be able to compete with Jokic and the Nuggets. I mean, think about LeBron and all the people that tried to topple his reign in the East when he went, 8-10 years in a row to the finals. The only team that ever came close to beating him were the teams that had MVP level players. And I think that's what somebody like the Thunder, who I'd like to talk about, has, because SGA is playing at an MVP level this season. And can he do it in the playoffs? I think a lot of people are questioning that, and I guess we'll see. But I think he's going to be able to keep up production to a pretty high degree.
Yeah. Shea has definitely stepped it up big time. He looks locked in this season. People are kind of making a joke that he scores 31 every single game.
31, 5.6 rebounds, 6.5 assists.
And while that is hilarious, at the same time, that's exactly what you need out of him.
And
if
that's
you can
exactly
do
what
that
he does.
every single game, I mean, that is an incredible advantage over your opponent. But I agree with you. I think it's not even so much can Shea play. It's going to be can the rest of this team play in the playoffs. We have Chet, arguably his second or third best option on that squad, and he's a rookie.
Yeah.
And so is he going to
be
be
able... And then Jalen Williams is a young guy too.
Young guy as well. And, not a lot of veteran leadership on that squad either. Realistically, I think I can't even peg the next veteran player on that team at the moment. Outside of, I guess they acquired Gordon Hayward recently.
They did get Gordon
good signing
Hayward,
there.
Bismack
That gives
Biyombo.
them some good veteran presence. Bismack's been in the league for a long time too.
Mike Muscala as well.
I really like the Gordon Hayward acquisition. I think that gives them a tough veteran off the bench, and I think that come playoff time, especially a guy like Gordon Hayward who has had some pretty good playoff runs, it's going to be a fun matchup to watch for the Thunder. Again, it's just a team I don't want to see. I really just don't want to see them at all.
I think they're a lot scarier than the Timberwolves because they have the MVP level player in Shea, and they have a phenomenal defense. And I know the Timberwolves do too, but the third best defense in the NBA with Shea guarding, say, Murray, that's not good for the Nuggets. We need Murray to be dominant.
Absolutely.
And for example, they have the third best defense in the NBA, like I said, 112.6 rating. They got Lou Dort as well on the backcourt. We gotta cut this out. I'm sorry.
Just keep talking.
I know. Give me a sec. I gotta rethink what the fuck I was saying.
Lou Dort in the backcourt.
Bars.
I'm just going to remix that breakdown.
Trying to think of like where I was even really going with that.
I'd like to know.
I don't know. Whatever.
Just say, okay, what's our next team? I'll just move us on. I'll cut you off at the intelligent point.
Thank you. Thank you. We can go Clippers or Celtics next.
Okay. Are you recording? You didn't stop? Okay.
Didn't stop.
For me, I think the biggest threat for the Nuggets right now, and it's a team that has remained strong throughout this season, and I've expected to see a lot more ups and downs just given who's on their roster. And without a doubt, it is the Clippers organization.
Yeah.
They have looked particularly scary overall for me. And, I think the biggest threats for the Nuggets lay in their own conference in the West. I think this is what's going to make it so tough because we have to go through somebody that's equipped with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and they're all playing well together.
They're all playing very well together, and they have a potential sixth man of the year with Norman Powell. I mean, Zubac is playing pretty well. No doubt they have the most star power. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue against that. They have 4 Hall of Famers easy on their team. But not only that, they're all producing at a super high level. Unfortunately, Westbrook did fracture his hand. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out. I'm guessing.
They're guessing multiple weeks. I would say 4 at the absolute minimum. Anytime you have a fracture like that, especially heading into the playoffs, I think we're going to see him 2 weeks right before the playoffs come back so they can get the rhythm headed into the postseason. But that does affect things. This is a team that hasn't played together for a super long time. I think it does give them a minor advantage that Westbrook and Harden have played together in the past, but Harden's still new to Kawhi and Paul George, Norman Powell, and Zubac. So these are people he's unfamiliar with, and it is clear they do mesh well. So I think they're going to have no problem when Westbrook comes back to hit their stride right in time for playoffs, which is what scares me the most. And they're one of the best equipped teams to beat the Denver Nuggets.
They are, by far. I mean, Zubac, I think, would get worked by Jokic. I don't think that's really a question. But the rest of the team, I mean, they're big. They're lanky. They're good at defense. It's pretty similar to how the Nuggets are.
Pretty
except
similar.
They have a lot more stars, a lot more shooters, a lot more ISO players. And Harden's worked really well with Zubac in the pick and roll. Paul George has worked really well in the ISO game. He's worked well with the two-man game with him and James Harden. But I think the X factor for that is going to be Kawhi Leonard. And if he's just in complete playoff Terminator mode like he was in 2019 when they won the championship, then that's going to be a tough team to beat.
Yeah, full-time Terminator mode, Kawhi Leonard. I think we all have some memories of Kawhi beating our favorite team at one point or another throughout his entire career, and he's just somebody that can get locked in real quick. And like you said, that MVP-level candidate, and Kawhi, while not necessarily an MVP candidate this year.
And they have 2 MVPs.
Yeah,
2
and Paul George.
MVPs.
Yeah,
and Paul
James
George.
Harden and Russell Westbrook. I mean, that's a lot of veteran star talent, like you said. And it's just a complete team, and they look good. I will say that the Nuggets have played them very well this year.
They have.
We've seen some victories, but at the same time, those were a little bit earlier in the year.
And I think that was before.
It was after the Harden trade. It had just happened.
The Harden trade had just happened.
It just
hadn't really
happened.
Got their chemistry.
Yeah, and then I
down
think
yet.
we beat them again a couple of weeks after that. But it seems like we're playing these teams kind of in a lump sum, like in groups. So we're not playing them again the rest of this year. But for us, it's still going to remain a difficult task to be able to guard that team as a whole, and then even from the offensive side to get things going. So hopefully the Clippers can get disrupted early on, and thankfully, once again, they're in that same top 4 category that the Nuggets are currently in, and they basically make up these 4 teams are kind of the standalone, unquestioned top threats in the West right now.
Definitely. And I think there are more potential threats in the West. I mean, the Suns are very good. The Pelicans are starting to kind of figure it out. I've kind of liked to see that. Like to see Zion get his footing down. And
Yeah, I'd like to see a good
he's
Zion.
not that fat, Stephen A. Relax.
Yeah,
It's
Zion's
okay.
just a really big guy, just like Shaq. Everyone likes to say Shaq was fat, but I would never want to play against him anywhere remotely near the post.
Absolutely not.
I think Zion gets the same thing, and he has a lot more bounce, I would say. So overall, I think the biggest thing you bring up is the Suns, and it's kind of been curious to me that they haven't been in more contention for the 1 seed, just given the amount of talent. And they've made some very intelligent moves when it's come
The
to
Royce
have filled
O'Neal-
in their roster. Royce O'Neal's worked out.
That's
Bol
worked out
has
perfect.
seemed like he's starting to get a stride. They've figured out how to kind of play him. I happened to actually catch a Suns game recently. Got to see Bol himself, and it was good to see him. But overall for him, they were giving him some minutes, letting him get some rotation in there. And honestly, I kind of wish we still had Bol on the Nuggets. I know there's some defensive liability that goes into that, but there's just something seen about him on the court that gets you excited. But Grayson Allen, I think, would be the biggest X factor to shout out on that Suns team, because obviously Bradley Beal's going to get it done. Obviously Kevin Durant's going to get it done. Devin Booker's going to get it done. But Grayson Allen in that 4-5 slot for them from an overall production standpoint, he has really upped his game. And I think that if he can maintain that in the playoffs, that's going to be what carries him through.
I think health is also going to be a huge X factor, because I think Booker, I believe he might have gotten hurt over the weekend. I think he had to leave a game early. It might be kind of a similar Murray situation where, it looked bad, but he might be coming back. But I think he might be out for a week or two from what I've seen. I'm not 100% sure. But they just need reps together. KD, Bradley Beal, Booker, they've not played enough games together to really be in contention for a contending spot in the West. However, they could potentially do that if they get their chemistry down, because they're scary together.
100% agreed completely. So our biggest threats as stands are the Clippers, potentially the Timberwolves, the Thunder, and the Suns, all remaining in the West. Tell us your thoughts. Give us a call, 720-446-8463. Who is your biggest threat to the Nuggets championship this season?
All right, those were some of the biggest threats to the Nuggets with Beyond Sports. Be sure to follow us on social media at Beyond Sports 5280. Call or text the show at 720-446-8463. Again, that number is 720-446-8463. That's all for us this week. Be sure to come back next week at 6 p.m. for more Beyond Sports.